Good morning, folks, and welcome to another edition of WOPTalk. Beautiful day today coming from Market Gianni here in LaSalle. Want to say hi to my good friend Diego. Good morning, Diego.
Good morning, Tony, Joey. How are you doing?
Very good.
I'm a little nervous this morning,
A little
Joey.
nervous. Why
Why are you nervous?
I'm a little nervous.
What kind of
this-
relationship is this?
It's Joey.
so we got.
You're calling him Tony.
That-
You're calling me Joey.
That's right. Okay, it started off great. So here we go, folks. You figured it out already. We got ourselves a really good one here this morning. We've anticipated this one for the past 7 months or so, and it finally coming to fruition. I'm very happy with it. Want to welcome on our show, Mr. Tony Marinaro. Tony, welcome to our show.
Thanks. It's good to be here. It only took 7 months because I have a lousy agent, which I'm going to fire, by the way, because if my agent would be any good, this whole thing would have gone done a long time ago. Hopefully he got me good money out of this because he actually told me, he said, we'll discuss finances later. I'm hoping I'm getting a pretty good envelope out of all this, but I'm happy to be here. And you know what? I've been following you guys for a while on YouTube as well. And I like the shit that you have going, and I like what you guys have going here. I think you're heading in the right direction. And I think the thing that's best about it is after interviewing Mose Persico and Tony Riccio and Nonna Maria and Frank Taddeo, you guys are doing it the way you're supposed to do it. You know, you start slow, and then you move on to the good stuff. And here I am today.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
As I followed your career slightly, and I really got into your career, you're the morning man, the Montreal Forum on TSN 690. You cover pretty much all sports. You're famous for your hockey insight and how you view it and how you put a perspective on things. But the question goes this way. You were born and raised in Villamar, not too far from LaSalle, just a hop, skip, and away from here. An Italian family. Your parents immigrated in '67 in Montreal. And so my question comes this way. You know that the Italians are great, hardworking community. This is what we want to promote. How difficult was it for you as you were growing up and say, I want to break into this market, having to understand the English language, articulate it, and master it to the point of where you are today?
Well, the thing that's most cool about all of this is I don't understand the English language. I haven't mastered it, and I cannot articulate. And I'm still on the radio. I mean, that's the best thing out of all of this whole thing. But look, long story short, yeah, I was born in Villemard. I was there until the age of 1. Probably the most popular guy to come out of Villemard, Mario Lemieux, would be second, a close second, by the way. But I spent my entire childhood here in LaSalle. To tell you the truth, I always knew that this was what I wanted to do. Actually, let me rephrase. What I always wanted to do was I want to be a pro soccer player, right? But let's face it, I'm not going to be one of these old Italian men who's going to tell you poteva essere giocatore, però a mamma mia, or o padre mio, o succede questo, o mi sono fatta male la gamba, mi fa male la schiena, quello là non mi ha dato la... No. Long story short, clearly I wasn't good enough, because if I would have been good enough, I would have been there. But when I knew that I wasn't going to be a soccer player, I fell in love with radio, probably at the age of 12 or 13 years old. And I can still remember going to bed at night with my Walkman and my headphones, and I used to listen to Ted Teven. And Ted Teven was more than a sports radio host. He was a personality, right? And I thought he was engaging. I thought he was entertaining, and he gave me the itch. The first itch I got to work in radio was courtesy of Ted Teven. And you know what? There were signs along the way where I thought maybe I can do something, because I would call a lot of sports radio shows. Mitch Garber was one. Mitch Melnick, my colleague, is another. Ted Teven. And one of the things I realized was I would call. It'd be tough to get a line, busy. Then all of a sudden, I get a line. I jump on a line. And by the time I'd actually call and I'd get through, I'd be on air within like 30 seconds. And that's a very, very good sign, because the lines are usually always full. And when they're full, you're thinking, okay, if I just got a line now, I got to wait 8 or 9 callers. But a real good sports radio host knows that his callers can really contribute to a show, and he wants to go to the good ones right off the bat. So when they come to you, it's a very good sign. But more importantly, there was one show that I remember vividly with the late Ted Teven, and I was listening to the show, and I had called in at one point, and I had a really, really good, strong call. And at the end of the show, which probably ended around 1 o'clock in the morning, and here I am falling asleep to Ted Teven once again in my bed, listening to a show on my Walkman. Ted Teven ended his show by saying, and by the way, in ending, for Tony from LaSalle, you have the goods to be in this business. And he ended his show that way. And that motivated me. It inspired me. And so I just plugged away, and obviously you got to get a little lucky too, and I did.
Ted Teven being a big influence on you. Really, how did it really take off from there?
I'd be one of those guys that I'd be, calling into the shows when they would have trivia contests. I'd win my share of trivia contests and stuff like that. But I got a little lucky. I would say probably about 11 years ago or so, or 12. No, even more than that. But anyway, about 12 or 13 years ago, I met Wayne Buse, who at the time was, I think he was working at Shome FM at the time, but he went on to work for the Team 990 when it first opened up. And so we kept in touch over the years, and we were involved in hockey fantasy pools together and stuff like that. And at one point, he sent me an email, and the Team 990 had just gotten off the ground, and he sent me an email, and the title was, "Do you want to be a star?" So I wrote back, and I think I wrote back.
Tony's mind starts.
Yeah, I think I wrote back, "I already am a star. What do you want?" But no, I basically I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Give me a call." So I gave him a call. And he said, "Look, here's the deal. We just started off. We don't have much of a budget. CJD has a Habs post-game show. We'd like to have one too. I hear you on the radio all the time. I think you'd be good at it. Do you want to come in?" So I went in, and he said,
this is with no radio experience.
with no
right?
radio experience whatsoever. They gave me a serious opportunity, and they said, "Record a demo." And I recorded a demo with Sean Starr at the time, and who was working there at the time. He was working the board for Melnick in the morning, and it wasn't very good. And they decided to give us the go-ahead anyway. So there I was working the post-game show on the Team 990, and I was volunteering.
Interesting.
So I'm working my regular job, 9 to 5. I'm going straight to the radio station. No, I'm going straight I'm working 9 to 5. I'm going straight to the Bell Center. I'm watching the game. After the second period, I'm leaving. I'm making my way to the radio station, and I'm on the air with the post-game show right after. My mother's going nuts. Or, "What are you doing? You just got married. You're away from your wife. You're volunteering. You're not getting paid. It's not worth it." But some people in the business told me, and notably one was Pierre Maguire. I reached out to him, and he said, "You know what? Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep plugging away, and do not refuse anything." So a couple of months later, they come back at me, and they say, "You know what? Post-game show is going pretty good. We actually have some companies that want to buy advertising on the program. We'd like for you to do a pregame show as well." So I said, "No problem. I'm in." So now I'm working my job 9 to 5. I'm making my way to the radio station. I'm there for 6 o'clock. I'm on the air with the pregame show.
Right.
After the pregame show, I make my way to the Bell Center. I watch the game. If the Canadians are playing on the road, I'm staying in studio. I'm finishing the show at around midnight. I'm getting home at around 1 o'clock in the morning. My mother's freaking out, right? You're not going to make it. You're an Italian guy.
Your wife's going to prepare the luggage soon.
That's right. Your wife's going to prepare the luggage. She's going to leave you. What am I going to tell the neighbors? And but I kept plugging away. And I would say I volunteered my services for about 6 or 7 months, maybe even less than that, actually. I think was less than that. I started in September. And at the end of December, they came back to me and they said, "Guess what? The station's got a little bit more budget now." At the time, the only show they had was the morning show with Melnick and Blackman. And they said they're going to have an afternoon drive. And they're asking people to audition. And so far, 7 people have volunteered to audition. So why don't you throw your name in the hat and make it an even 8? So I did that. And first week of January or at the end of December, they got back to me a couple of weeks later. And they said, "You've been selected along with comedian Joey Elias." I'd never met him before. And he was going to be my partner. And we were going to host the afternoon drive between 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. And I started off around 3rd or 4th of January. It'll be 11 years this January.
And so you left your full-time job, 9 to 5 job,
yeah,
to pursue this?
It just so happened I was working in the hotel industry at the time, and this all coincided with a meeting I'd had with my boss that told me that my department was actually moving to North Carolina.
And they asked you to move?
No, no. They had told me that within 6 months I was going to be losing my job.
Right.
So you know what?
Everything coincidentally just fell into place.
My mom, who's one of those, there's no way an Italian guy is going to make it on
Like
radio,
the typical
right?
mom, right? The typical Italian mom.
Everything is like, just forget about it. Don't go skating because you're going to break your ankle. Don't go skiing because you're going to break your leg. Don't take up swimming classes because you're going to end up drowning. She was one of those, right? I was never able to ride a bike because I was going to get hit by a car. But she said, no, stay at the company. They might come back and tell you there's a position in another department. I said,
Right.
You know what? I'm losing my job here. This has always been my dream, and I'm going to regret it if I don't pursue it. So let me pursue it, and if I'm not good enough and they end up canning me, well, I lost my job here, I'm going to lose my job there. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. So I said, let me go for it. And once again, it's a couple of months shy of 11 years. I've worked in different time slots. I've done the afternoon drive. I did mornings, which were difficult because you're waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. And for the last 6 or 7 years or so, I've been hosting my own show, the Montreal Forum, between 10 and noon. And this is a slot that I love. This is a show that I love. I'm happy I'm doing it solo. I don't mind having a partner, but I get to do it my way.
Evidently, you're very passionate about what you do. I don't think you would have succeeded without that passion. What's the driving force behind it, though?
Growing up, I was a huge Canadiens fan. And I wouldn't say I'm not a Canadiens fan now. And I wouldn't, look, we live in Montreal. I think everyone wants to see the local team do well. Let's be honest. But when I got in the business, I kind of detached a little bit because I said, you know what, it's going to, it's going to get in the way of the way I do my job and stuff like that. I want to be able to be objective. And with that in mind, I just, I became more and more objective every year. And I've kind of detached. I mean, look, there's no doubt I'd like to see them win the Stanley Cup. But I no longer lose sleep if they lose. Actually, every now and then it's a pretty good thing because I have a feeling that the show is going to have a little bit more spice, either that night or the following day.
Right.
But I was, to answer your question, I was a huge Canadiens fan growing up. I love Guy Lafleur. I mean, I never played ice hockey because my mom thought I was going to break my ankle, of course. But we all played ball hockey, right? And I was Guy Lafleur, and you wanted the orange ball at the time or the tennis ball. And you want to score that game-winning goal. So I love the Flower. I love the Habs. A big Canadiens fan. And that was basically most of it. It's a hockey city. There are other sports. There is the CFL. There is the MLS. But, I mean, the city is Habs.
The big boy is Habs, yes.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So, I talk about sports all the time. I don't watch television shows. I don't remember when was the last time I watched a television show. Really, my buddies are like, did you watch this? Did you watch? No. Like, I watch SportsCenter, or I watch Barcelona, or I watch Real Madrid, or I watch Inter Milan, or I watch Paris Saint-Germain, or I watch Monaco, or I watch the NHL Network, or I watch the NHL Package, or I watch NFL Sunday, or I watch Monday Night Football, or I watch the tennis, or I watch the golf. That's all I watch. I don't like watching television shows. They don't interest me. I mean, every now and then I'd like to go off to watch a movie. But so when you say the driving force, just once again, passionate about sports. I talk about it every day with my buddies anyway. I might as well make a living out of it.
Right.
And it's all I watch. I don't watch anything else. Nothing else interests me, really.
How important is amateur soccer in Quebec right now? And is the Quebec Soccer Association taking it serious to have a program of development for these children as they play this game?
Well, when we're talking about how much I love soccer, it's funny. How much I love hockey, it's funny because when the one sport that I did play competitively growing up was, and we talked about it, was soccer. And, I loved soccer just as much as I loved hockey when I was a kid, maybe even more. Actually, probably more because I was playing it as well. So there was that extra interest that was there. And now with my boys, and both my boys play, my 10 and my 8, and I find that I'm driving them to practice all the time. I'm taking them to their practices. I'm driving them to their games. We're going to their tournaments, and they're playing so much soccer that I've once again fallen in love with my first love, which was soccer. And the my love for hockey's, I wouldn't say it's still there, obviously, and it's what drives the show, but it's diminished a little bit because
Right.
soccer takes up so much of my time. I mean, if I tell you that, my 8-year-old is on a soccer field 2 to 3 times a week, my 10-year-old is on a soccer field 4 to 5 times per week, and when they're not practicing, we're going out, we're practicing ourselves. One of the things we like to do in the summer is actually just go to a park, any park, and watch some games. To answer your question, look, it's soccer's come a long way, but there's still a very long way to go.
Absolutely.
And this is my opinion, and there are good people working here in soccer. There are. Unfortunately, it's still not ingrained in the culture. Hockey is still number one. It probably always will be in this country, let's face it. And although some good things are being done here, I still think that the setup is flawed. Some people agree with me, some people don't. We put you in a league at 5 years of age. We make you play, right? You don't have practices when it's house league at 5 or 6.
Right.
Some leagues start off at 7 where they're playing organized and then they have practices. But you're playing the game and you're playing it the wrong way. And you don't really have too many people to correct it. So I find that the structure is a little flawed. Another thing is there's so much emphasis on AAA soccer here. That's our big baby here, right? And AAA soccer starts at 14 years of age. So 14 has AAA teams, 15, 16, 17, 18, etc. And what happens is AAA is so important to so many clubs that they'll take their best coaches and they'll put them anywhere between the U13 and U18. U13 because that's the year that you have to have a good season to qualify for AAA.
Right.
And once you're in AAA. For me, I mean, I've always thought that you take your best coaches and you put them at the youngest age possible so that you teach the kids the game the right way and you develop them the right way. So anyway, that's a different way of thinking. I still think there's a long ways to go. And with all due respect to Quebec, any chance I have to take my kids to Europe and make them do, a little soccer training down there, I go for it. Let's face it. Let's be honest. If a boy in Italy is playing hockey and he wants to go to the right school, he comes to Canada.
Right.
If
And
a boy
vice
in
versa.
Canada is playing soccer and he wants to go to the right school, with all due respect to the good work that they're doing in Quebec, you're going to go to Europe.
Absolutely.
I think it's only normal.
Yep. So Tony, shifting gears here, we understand your passion for soccer, but hypothetically speaking, let's say you became a professional hockey player back, in your day, and you were playing for the Habs. In what era would you like to be playing? With who would you have liked to be playing?
I'd love to be in Steve Schutt's role on the left wing on the line with Lemaire and Lafleur. Huh?
It's
Playing for the Habs in the late 70s.
Awesome.
I mean, you would think, right? I mean, that team was amazing. They won the Cup from 76 to 79. They won 4 straight Stanley Cups. And then, the torch was passed on to the New York Islanders, who held it for a while, 4 straight years for them.
Then the Edmonton
Oilers. And then, years after that, the Detroit Red Wings started to become somewhat of a dynasty. And it's hard to have a dynasty now. But I would say for the Habs, it'd have to be in the late 70s when they had those great rivalries with
Boston,
the Philadelphia Flyers, with the Boston Bruins. And I'd say late 70s on the line with, I shoot left winger. With all due respect to Steve Schutt, I need somebody setting me up. Lafleur's my childhood idol. I like to play with him. And Robinson and Savard on defense.
There you go.
excellent, excellent.
With Ken Dryden in goal.
Favorite player of all time?
Favorite player of all time. Favorite Montreal Canadian. Best player of all time, Wayne Gretzky, in my opinion.
Right.
But my favorite player, Guy Lafleur. All right, does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. Makes sense to
You
me.
know,
I mean,
Best soccer player of all time, in my opinion, Diego Armando Maradona. You can make a case for Lionel Messi. I love Zinedine Zidane, love Ronaldinho. There's a lot of guys I really, really like Cristiano Ronaldo.
Pele?
But, Pele was a little bit before my time. I've had a chance to see all the videos and stuff, but obviously there's more of an attachment when you're watching guys. But, even though he wasn't the best player of all time, my favorite player of all time, Roberto Baggio.
right.
Right? I mean, you're growing up.
Unfortunately, he missed the penalty kick in '94.
Yeah. It happens to everybody.
It happens to everybody.
Lionel Messi missed a penalty kick last week in the Spanish Cup, and it went right off the bar and stuff like that. It happens to everybody. What's a shame is that he'll always be remembered for that.
Absolutely. Unfortunately.
He scored over 200 goals in his career. He had 7 or 8 knee operations. The guy he never practiced healthy. He was always in pain. And that particular year, when he missed that penalty kick back in 1994, He scored a late goal to tie it up against Nigeria to keep Italy alive.
I remember that, yes.
He scored in extra time to give Italy the win. He went on after that, and he scored a huge goal against Spain in the 87th minute.
But nobody remembers all
in
of
Boston
this, right?
to give them a 2-1 lead and win at the time. And then they went into the semifinal. You remember what happened in the semifinal? They played Bulgaria, and they won by a score of 2-0.
That's right.
And he scored like 2 goals within 10 or 15 minutes
That's
in
right.
the first half to win the game. And close to the end of the game, that's when he got hurt. He wasn't at 100% for that game. It's too bad because, had it not been for Baggio, Italy wouldn't have got there. That's number one. Number two, even if he scores and Brazil scores next, they're eliminated anyway because Italy had already missed a couple.
Correct.
So it's too bad. But
Unfortunately, that's what he was remembered.
you
by,
asked me
that
about
one.
my favorite players, right? You grew up a Canadiens fan. My favorite player is Lafleur.
Yep.
You grew up watching soccer and being a fan of the Italian national team. My favorite player is Baggio. I realize Lafleur is not the best hockey player ever, and I realize Baggio is not the best soccer player ever. But those were my favorites.